Hey, what up everyone, this is MandoAllDay back with another video, and in this video I'll be doing a build guide for Iron Man. I'll be going over which artifacts I use, which uniques I use, insignia medallion, as well as go over the powers and traits, or talents and traits, however they call it. Hero synergies, and at the very end give you my rotation and give you suggestions and pointers as far as how I was able to pass Cosmic Trial with Iron Man without using any infinity points. So let's get right into it. So the first thing we're going to look at are the artifacts. So the first artifact is Hand of Doom. I know this is a bit difficult to obtain because it's one of those artifacts that are hard, very rare. But just kind of give not warning, but heads up. You don't have to use this. You can use any artifact as long as the artifact either grants you energy damage increase, damage to range powers, or any two of his attributes, which in this case it's energy and intelligence. So if you have an artifact that grants you, increase to +2 energy or intelligence or whatever, that's really I would use that. So in case you don't have Hand of Doom, but the reason why I'm using Hand of Doom is because it grants +2 strength, which is irrelevant to him, critical hit rating, +2 energy, +2 intelligence, and again that's really good because Iron Man is energy and intelligence attribute based, so that's really good for him. A Brutal Strike rating. Then I'm using a Siege targeting system. I'm using this for the Brutal Strike and Brutal Damage rating. Also, there's a 5% chance that when you hit, to analyze your target's weaknesses, gaining over 1,000 damage rating and over 600 critical hit rating for 5 seconds. Again, this might not be the best artifact for him, but since I had a bunch of these laying around, to figure why not use it. And honestly, having that 5% chance to gain over 1,000 damage rating, that's really good. So keep that in mind. Medallion, I'm using Infernal World Scroll Medallion. I'm using this for the health increase, +1 intelligence, summon damage. I say summon because when you activate his ultimate, he is a summoner, so he does summon quite a bit of his iron suits when you activate his ultimate power. But again, I wouldn't focus so much on summon damage, so keep that in mind. But I'm mainly using this for when you hit with an area power, you get a buff that increases your range powers, and then when you hit with a range power, you get a buff that increases your area damage. But when you activate both those buffs, you gain additional. You gain Loki's power, which grants you +2 intelligence, which in turn helps you out with your damage rating overall. So hence why I chose that. Then I'm using Crossbone's Teaching Credentials. I'm using this for damage rating to range powers and melee powers increase, Brutal Strike rating, critical hit rating, and +2 energy, as well as when you critically land. When you land a critical hit, gain 410 brutal damage for 5 seconds, and it stacks 3 times. So this is pretty good. And then I'm using Improved Arc Reactor artifact. I'm using this for the suit power increase and damage rating to bosses. Personally, it's not bad. I mean, Iron Man is very suit power dependent. Before the big update, this is really good because it granted quite a substantial damage. But now that after this update, they kind of nerfed this particular artifact. It's still good, don't get me wrong, but just keep in mind, if you don't have this, use another artifact that grants you either plus intelligence, energy, or damage to energy powers or whatever. And then I'm using Forge 800 defense, and I have it blessed to where I gain extra 200 damage to range powers and energy powers. Legendary, I'm using McCrane Crystal for the suit power increase, health increase, damage rating, and critical hit rating increase. Ring, I'm using Industrial City. I'm using this for the critical hit rating to range attacks, health increase. When you hit with the range power, gain extra damage rating, critical damage rating, and more importantly, the attack speed to range powers. And then for uniques, I'm using all of his uniques except for one, slot 1. As I said before in my Star-Lord build guide video, and I don't want to go into in detail, but before the update, this was really good. Now after the update, it's not the best. It's not the worst, but it's not the best. I unfortunately do not have any Iron Man slot 1 uniques, so I cannot compare them. But my advice would be, if you don't have this particular unique, I would say utilize or use Iron Man slot 1 unique, because most likely his slot 1 unique will grant you, a couple of attributes, either intelligence or energy, which in turn will help your damage, your base damage overall. So again, if you don't have this, use Iron Man's slot 1 uniques. And then for costume, I'm using shotgun costume. And then I'm advanced technological systems. I have it to where +2 durability, which is a bit irrelevant, +3 intelligence, and +1 energy. That's really good because again, he is energy intelligence based, so having +3 intelligence and +1 energy is really good. And then crafted affixes, critical damage rating, as always critical damage. For insignia, I'm using Insignia Wolverine. When you critical hit, you and your allies gain 132 damage rating, and you also get brutal strike and brutal damage rating. But this particular insignia grants you critical damage rating and defense rating, so that's really good because of the critical damage and the defense rating. And then for the pet, I have it here to where I take 2% less damage from enemy area powers, 30% move speed, base damage to area powers. When you stop moving, gain 4% defense rating and 4% dodge for 12 seconds, and then +3 energy. So that's really good, really strong pet for Iron Man. Now for the powers, which ones I use, top to bottom, left to right. Unibeam, Arc Reactor Overload, Death from Above, Repulsor Barrage, Satellite Strike, the One-Off, Coolant Blast, and that's it. And I'll go over the talented traits at the end. Infinity points, 0 as I stated. Hero Synergies. Sorry, I'm going to drink some water. Captain Marvel for the energy damage increase. Dr. Doom for the signature power damage increase. Hawkeye for the move speed and critical damage increase. Human Torch for the area damage increase. Iron Man for the range and energy damage increase. Silver Surfer for the move speed, energy damage increase. Scroll Girl for the damage to bosses increase. Star-Lord for the critical hit rating, critical hit multiplier to energy powers. Vision for the range power damage increase. 10% damage to machines, and then Wolverine for the brutal strike and brutal damage. Now for the talented traits, I'll go over which ones I use and why. So the first row I'm using is missile targeting. I'm using this mainly, it's just a personal preference, to be honest with you. But the reason why I'm using it is because what it does is when you activate this talent, it grants automatic missiles, meaning that it automatically shoots missiles automatically, similar to War Machine. Again, it's just a preference choice. You don't have to. For this particular build, any of these in this particular row are really good. You can use missile targeting, which again grants you automatic missiles, or you can use unstable core. Well, what this does is when you hit an enemy, trigger an arc reactor overload, restoring 20% of your maximum suit power, which is really good because he's very suit power dependent. This effect only occurs if you have less than 80% of your suit power. So again, it's really good too. This is a really good talent. Excuse me. It's a really good one. So keep that in mind. And then overclocking as well too. That's another good talent. What this does is arc reactor's damage bonus is increased by 100%. Damage rating is plus 840, and suit power cost plus 10%. Again, any of these are good too, but me personally, I chose this route for automatic missiles, but this is good too. Overclocking, again, it's really good, but it all depends on you. I personally went with missile targeting, just a preference choice, that's all, but any of these are really good. I think most likely people will choose overclocking to get the extra damage rating, because again, it grants you 840, so you can see right here, 3300. If you go back to missile targeting, back to 2400. So again, I'm pretty sure most likely everyone will use overclocking, but for me personally, I just wanted the automatic missiles. It's just a personal preference, but I really let you guys know these three and why. So any of these were good. So anyways, continue on. Second row, I chose reactive armor. I'm using this for the defense increase, or defense rating increase, and when you get hit by an enemy, damage is absorbed by over 1,000. Superpower cost is 20, not too bad, and duration 5 seconds. Again, I just use this for the defense rating. That's why I chose this particular talent. And then third row, the talent I'm using is Upgrade Orbital Interface. What this does is Jericho Bombardment transform into Satellite Strike, which are this particular power right here. Now we'll remove it so you can see what I mean. See? So what this does is when you activate this talent, Satellite Strike deals energy damage instead of physical, always critically hits, and occasionally fires a targeted strike when you deal damage to enemies. Targeted strike energy damage is about, it tells you right there. So basically, I'll show you what it used to do. So Jericho Bombardment does this. It shoots missiles and but when it activates Upgrade Orbital Interface, Jericho Bombardment transforms into Satellite Strike. Oops, there you go. I'll show you what it looks like. See, same thing. But the reason why I chose this is personally because I want my let's keep shooting automatically. I want Iron Man to just be energy based, range and energy, because he's both physical. Oh, he's ranged, but he's both physical and energy. And to me, I had many. Before I have a lot of items that are energy based that do like that increase your energy damage. And so what I wanted to do is increase or have more powers that do energy damage, if that makes sense. So that's the reason why I chose a particular talent. The other ones are good too, don't get me wrong. Again, but for me personally, I just wanted all energy based range powers for Iron Man. So yeah. And then fourth row, I'm using upgrade. Excuse me. Well, I'm a little sick right now, as you can tell. If I stutter here and there, because I'm sick. For the fourth row talent, I'm using Upgrade Armor Hydraulics. I'm using this because of the Death from Above, which what it does is it increases the damage by 50%, and the cooldown is plus 4 seconds. So the cooldown is increased by 4 seconds, but the damage is pretty good. The damage increase is really good. So Death from Above, and again, I'll show you my rotation when I use this, but what it does is it does quite a bit of damage, but when you activate this talent, it increases the damage by 50% to Death from Above or Jet Assisted Slam. So any both of these, it increases the damage, but since I'm using Death from Above, I want to get that one perk of that talent. And then last but not least is the fifth row, and I chose to use Upgraded Repulsor talent. I'm using this because Repulsor and Micro Laser damage is increased by 10%. But I'm using this mainly because Unibeam. Unibeam deals more damage, has a cooldown, fires instantly, gains the execute damage bonus effect, and hits in a much wider area. And so I chose this because originally, before the big update, Unibeam was really good, but you had to power it up. And I think you still do now. Actually, let me remove it to show you what I mean. So this is Unibeam, and you're gonna see me. I have to power it up to get the full damage. And you notice it's not even that wide. So I'll do it again, and I want you to see how it's not as wide. But when you activate Upgrade Repulsor talent, what it does is it instantaneously activates and uses up the full execute, meaning you don't have to charge it up. And it shoots wider, so it looks something like this now. See, it's wider and it's right away. Now it has a cooldown too, before it didn't. And so that's why I chose this particular talent, just for that reason. Because again, I wanted to do the damage right away, and it's pretty strong as is. So yeah. So that's those are the talents and traits or talents that I chose. Now let's get into the rotation. The rotation, honestly, is really simple with Iron Man. But I'll go over in terms of my rotation. Oh, team up Iron Man. So let's get right into it. So the first thing what I usually do is activate Satellite Strike. What this does is, again, you saw it earlier, it does not only range but area damage. And the good thing about it is that you can place it wherever you want. So if, for instance, let's just say you're doing Cosmic Trial and there's enemies around here, you could put Satellite Strike in right in the middle and start doing damage right away. It looks something like this. On? Yeah, I do. Okay. Alright, so first thing I usually do is that, just Satellite Strike. And then after that, use Unibeam. And then start using my Repulsive Barrage. And then do it again. Satellite Strike. Now I would say this, if I would activate Satellite Strike, my advice or little tip is don't try to use Satellite Strike in the same location. Try to move it around. So in this scenario, since all the enemies are kind of close nearby, definitely put Satellite Strike in the middle and just keep doing it. But let's just say scenario number 2, where you have enemies spread out. When you activate Satellite Strike, make sure you move it around, or place Satellite Strike where it does quite a bit of damage to one area, and then when you activate another Satellite Strike, it does damage to another area. So it looks something like this. Unibeam, Pulsar, which is Satellite Strike over here. See what I mean? That way you can get damage all across. So again, the first rotation, simple, activate Satellite Strike, then after that Unibeam to get that quite substantial damage, and then from there use Repulsive Barrage. Now, when do I use the other powers? Simple. I always activate Death from Above, then Arc Reactor Overload. Arc Reactor Overload does quite a bit of damage, but the thing about this damage is that it's not really, the area damage is not really substantial. I mean, it does quite a bit of damage. I mean, the area itself, when you activate it, it's decent, but it's not a lot. So usually what I do is, whenever I activate Death from Above, I activate Arc Reactor, so that way as soon as I land with Death from Above, I can activate Arc Reactor Overload, and then when you do that, you gain 40% of your max suit power, so it's really good. And then from there, I activate Cooling Blast, and I do this because what Cooling Blast does is it freezes the enemies and slows them down by 50%. So again, it looks something like this. I'm just going to activate Death from Above, Arc Reactor, and then Cooling Blast. See how they're frozen? And all you do is Satellite Strike, and then just keep doing your thing. Since I'm in the middle here, you can activate Cooling Blast, kind of slow them down again, and then from above, Cooling Blast again, freeze them. See what I mean? So again, so scenario number 2, let's just say you're over here, and then this is Cosmic Trial. You're fighting the enemies. Satellite Strike. You can do Cooling Blast, freeze your enemies. Satellite Strike. Cooling Blast is deal damage. Okay, now for Cooling Blast, since it does not have a cooldown, you can activate it whenever. My advice is just whenever you activate your first rotation, which is Satellite Strike and Unibeam, then Repulsor, activate Cooling Blast here and there. That way you can freeze your enemies. I don't really rely on this too much. I just activate it just to not only do damage, but also have a chance to freeze my enemies, which in turn, if I'm using Repulsive Barrage, it's just going to do, the damage is going to, the DPS is going to be increasing. And plus on top of that, it slows down the enemies and occasionally freezes them, so even better. And then obviously, as I stated, Death from Above, Arc Reactor, and Cooling Blast. Make sure they're all together, because that way when you land Death from Above and you activate Arc Reactor Overload, you get the area damage, and then right away activate Cooling Blast, so that way you can freeze the enemies around you, and then add it again. Another good way to do is, and again, this is my third rotation, is activate again Death from Above, Arc Reactor Overload, Coolant Blast, and then Signature. That way, if you're in the middle, like scenario number 1, you can do will look something like this. So again, it's Death from Above, Arc Reactor, Coolant, and then Signature. This is like rotation number 3. Signature, and then presentation and repulsor, and so forth. See that? And that's my rotation number 3. That's including Signature. But the first rotation is simple: Satellite Strike, place them according to the terrain, and then Unibeam right after the Repulsor. You can use Coolant Blast. Don't get me wrong. If there's enemy, if let's just say there's over here, you activate Satellite Strike, and then Unibeam, and there's an enemy here, you can activate Coolant Blast. You know, because again, it doesn't have a cooldown. That way you can freeze your enemy and just use Repulsor Barrage, and then whenever you want, you can activate rotation number 2, which is Death from Above, Arc Reactor, Coolant Blast, and then if you want to, or if you can, activate Signature. Now the cool thing to note, as a little tip, is Arc Reactor does grant you 40% of your suit power, meaning that if you're low on suit power, just activate Arc Reactor and it increases or regenerates your suit power. So keep that in mind. And that's really it, honestly. It's a very simple, very straightforward build. He is fun to play with. To be honest with you, in terms of the talents, he's probably one of the better ones so far that I've played with, because any of them, they're really, really good. It just depends on your personal preference as well as your build. As I stated, you know, for the first row, I chose missile targeting just for personal preference, but I think I would say about over 80% of the people are going to be using overclocking to get that damage rating increase. But again, any of these 3 are really, really good. It depends on your build, but more importantly, it depends on how you want to play. I know one of powers, which I kept trying to the one off. I know one of them. Here you go. Another talent too is for row 4 is upgrade micro lasers. What it does is it transforms certain powers to something else, or channel Repulsor transform to micro lasers. But more importantly, the one off, which is a Signature, has a cooldown deduction of 5 seconds. So right now his Signature is 20 seconds. So when you have upgraded micro lasers, your Signature goes from 20-second cooldown to 15. So I mean, you can reactivate it again. And again, that's good too. But for me, as I stated, I prefer upgrade armor hydraulics, so that way I can increase the damage from Death from Above. Again, it's just a preference choice, but it's really up to you. And so far, it seems like Iron Man's pretty, like, any of these talents are really good, and it's more of like whatever your powers you decided to go with, just use those powers and use it, and that's really it. So to me, I think he probably has a better diverse talents, where like if you choose certain powers, just go to the talent, activate that, and it's going to benefit that particular power. So it's so to me, so far, I think he's had a better. Seems to me they spent more time with him in terms of improving him in terms of his buffs and everything. Because before he wasn't bad, he was okay, but I think now he can do quite a bit of damage depending on the talents you choose and the powers you use and somewhat of the artifacts. You can do quite a bit of damage, and he's fun to play with. And yeah, this is my build guide for Iron Man. I know it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward, but again, this is the build I use to pass Cosmic Trial without using infinity points. If you have any requests for certain characters, again, leave it in the comment section below. If this video is helpful for you guys, leave it in the comment section below. If you want to be up to date with any videos of mine, or if you want to help the channel a lot, again, please do subscribe to the channel, because it not only does it help the channel grow, but also means a lot to me as well. And again, any requests for certain characters, leave it in the comment section below. I am working on Loki. He's a bit confusing, but I'll work on that. And then I have another character coming in Monday. I won't say who or what, but I have another character coming in Monday, and build guide Tuesday, and then most likely Loki will come in next Wednesday, the Cosmic Trial, and Thursday will be the build guide. So that's my schedule for next week. And yeah, again, hopefully you guys enjoy this build, and hopefully you're able to have fun with Iron Man. Yeah, I would say he's up there with his new update. So far, the characters I've played, he's up there in terms of enjoying and having fun. And yeah, this is my build guide for Iron Man. Hopefully you guys liked it. Alrighty, on to the next one. Bye bye.